Welcome and thank you for standing by. Today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would like to inform all participants you will be in a listen-only mode until the question and answer session of today's conference. I would now like to turn the conference over to Ms. Wendy Peebles. Thank you, and you may begin.
Thank you, operator. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wendy Peebles, Survey Statistician, Census Bureau, Economic Management Division. Thank you all for joining today. We have two subject matter experts from the Economic Indicators Division who will discuss census trade data tools to include the Schedule B search engine, Global Market Finder, U.S. Trade Online, and Trade API, Applied Programming Interface. We believe these tools will provide excellent resources for expanding global business operations. If you have questions on achieving export compliance, please call 800-549-0595, option 3. That was one of the topics that was planned for today, but we will not be covering that. But please feel free to call our toll-free number if you have questions. Or also, you may utilize the toll-free number that can assist you with other trade questions by selecting the appropriate option. Once again, we have an informative webinar plan, and I'd like to go over a few items before we start. As the operator mentioned, the webinar is being recorded. You will receive the PowerPoint presentation, transcript, and recording within about 5 to 7 business days, and it will be posted to the Census Academy site. The question and answer session will occur at the end of today's webinar. Please submit questions using the Q&A feature. We have a team that will be monitoring the Q&A heading, and we will address your questions possibly throughout the webinar, and again, we will open it up for the Q&A at the end. The host will place announcements in the chat, but for attendees, please utilize the Q&A feature for submitting your questions. And lastly, we value your feedback, so please complete the evaluation form at the end as it assists us in planning future webinars. The evaluation link is safe, and you will be routed to a secure external site. So I think we're ready to begin. We got the housekeeping tips out of the way, and I'd like to introduce our speakers for today, Tia Mueslick and Andrew Scallion. I'd just like to share with you a little information on our presenters. Tia Mueslick is a survey statistician in the International Trade Indicator Microanalysis branch of the U.S. Census Bureau. She began her career at the Census Bureau in the Decennial Census Management Division, helping develop the 2020 Census Fraud Detection System. She holds a BA degree in economics and accounting from the University of South Florida and a master's from the London School of Economics, where she studied globalization and regional development. Andrew Scallion is a survey statistician in the International Trade Indicator Microanalysis branch of the U.S. Census Bureau. Previous to joining the trade team, Andrew spent 4 years in retail indicator analysis. He's from Atlanta and has a BS in Science Technology and Culture from Georgia Tech and his master's in international affairs from U.S. College in San Diego. And at this time, I would like to turn it over to Tia to begin. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the International Trade Data webinar. This is Tia. I will be covering the Schedule B and USA Trade Online portions of today's session. Before we dive into those two topics, let's take a look at where we get our international trade data from. All importers importing products into the United States and exporters exporting products out of the United States are required to file forms with the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection takes data from all of those forms and sends it to the United States Census Bureau, where we prepare that data for publishing, and we publish it on a monthly and quarterly cadence. All right, so before we move on into the three data sources, the USA Trade Online, the Global Market Finder, and the Census Trade API, all of which we'll cover in a minute, I would like to go over Schedule B with you, as it's something that may help enhance your data search in those three. So what is Schedule B? U.S. export commodities are organized in Schedule B. It contains more than 9,000 export commodity codes, and it can be used to find export commodities. In other words, you can consider Schedule B to be sort of a very large catalog of export commodities. However, instead of manually searching that large catalog for an export commodity that you're interested in, we have developed a search engine that allows you to quickly search for an export commodity. So let's take a look, do a very brief demo of how you would conduct a search in Schedule B. I have included a link in the PowerPoint. You can follow along, but the link is in the PowerPoint. All right, this is what Schedule B looks like. In the search box next to describe your product, you can type in any type of commodities that you're interested in finding the corresponding export commodity for. In today's example, we're going to be using an example of a fishing rod. So if you're interested in knowing what the export commodity is for fishing rods, we would type in fishing rod into the search box and click the Classify button. If we scroll down below, we have a list of displayed commodities for fishing rods. So the initial commodity that we see here is fishing rods, fish hooks, and other fish line tackle. We were specifically looking for fishing rods, so we would continue looking down in the list until we find fishing rods, which would be this commodity. The valuable part of Schedule B really is finding that exact commodity that you're looking for and jotting down the Schedule B number. So this will be the number that you would jot down and then later on use in your search in USA Trade Online, in the Global Market Finder, and the Census API. So that's a very basic search in Schedule B. I have added 5 tips for easier search in Schedule B. So let's take a look at what some of those are. All right, so tip number 1. Whenever you see an information icon or an asterisk, you may want to hover over it because that's going to provide search tips, definitions or explanations of different terminology. And then we have tip number 2. You can do a much more detailed search if you define assumed characteristics. Sometimes this is necessary, sometimes it's not. Schedule B is a smart search engine that incorporates information gathered from previous searches. So assumed characteristics are what the search engine assumes to be true to move you along the path more quickly. You can modify these if needed. Tip number 3, once we have that list of commodities as a result of our search, you can start kind of browsing down. You can select the best 4-digit heading or 6-digit subheading. But the point is to drill down to your 10-digit code. So once you have that, jot down your 10-digit code. One important thing to do is to also read the related notes. You can find the section chapter notes within the search engine by clicking on the Notes tab right next to the Schedule B tab. Schedule B is pretty easy to use. It's really not that complicated, but it can really help you out when searching in USA Trade Online, the Global Market Finder, and the Census API. So now that we have covered Schedule B, let's take a look at USA Trade Online. What is USA Trade Online? USA Trade Online is an online database that is free and open to the public. It provides current and cumulative U.S. export and import data at the commodity level. We update it every single month, and it contains import and export data that can be filtered based on commodity, HS, and NAICS codes. So HS codes would be what we just looked up in Schedule B. You can take a look at dollar value of commodities, quantity of commodities, unit value, air and or vessel dollar values, and shipping weight. You can filter it based on countries, geographic regions, trade agreements, international organizations. You can filter it by states, U.S. districts, ports, and time. In terms of time, we have data available for each month of the year, going back to 2002, and then we have annual data going back to 1992. USA Trade Online commodities. Commodities are available in USA Trade Online under the classification of harmonized systems. HS, and NAICS. There are more than 17,000 import commodities and more than 9,000 export commodities. The harmonized system, coding system, provides the most detailed international trade data at the HS 10-digit level, which is that code that we had pulled up in Schedule B. And then it also provides data by NAICS as well, which is industry-based. All right, so now that we've covered a little bit about USA Trade Online, what it is and what it contains, I think we can go ahead and take a look at how to navigate it. All right, so first-time users in USA Trade Online would click on the Sign Up Now button. All that's required for this is a valid email address, and once you've created an account, you can go ahead and click on the Login button to log into your account. Before I log in, I want to point a couple of things out on the main page, such as the list of available data in USA Trade Online is available here. We kind of did a high overview of this, and once we get inside USA Trade Online, we can take a look at these data sources. And one thing that I would strongly recommend is that you visit the Help and FAQs section of the website. We have tutorial videos and user guide under this tab. These can be very, very helpful in navigating UTO because it has so much data, and this can help show you kind of how you can filter data and exactly what's available. So I'm going to go ahead and log in and do a brief demo. So once you've created your account and you have logged into your account, this is the main page or the data source selection page. And here we have a list of different data sources. The initial one is the Harmonized System District Level Data. This source here is the source that offers data at the most detailed commodity level. So this is the only data source in this list that will provide you with 10-digit HS level data, which is the most detailed commodity level. However, if you're interested in port level data, we have that available. We have state exports by Harmonized System Coding and NAICS, as well as state import data by Harmonized System and NAICS. And then we have NAICS district level data. For the sake of the demo, we'll take a look at HS district level data exports. However, for the sake of navigating each of these data sources, the navigation is very, very similar. So we'll go ahead and click on Export. Once you've entered this data source for exports, the first screen that you encounter is the commodity screen. Right here we see state commodity, and what it wants you to do is to select a commodity that you're interested in getting the data for. One of the ways to do that is to open up these commodity trees by clicking the plus on the left-hand side, and then kind of browsing through and selecting your commodities. As you can see, this list is very long, especially given that it has so many different commodities rolled up into these sections, and it would be very tedious and lengthy to search for your commodities that way. The great thing is that we conducted a Schedule B search, and we know exactly what code we're looking for. So we would type that in here. So for fishing rods, our results had turned up Schedule B number 9507-10040, and this is the number that we would type into USA Trade Online. One thing to note is that USA Trade Online does not take periods, so that's something that you would need to eliminate. I've had folks call me and say that, USA Trade Online is not working, they can't find what they need, only to find out that their code included periods. So make sure to always remove that. Once we have typed that in, we would hit the search button. And we see that our commodity, the commodity that we're interested in, has come up as fishing rod. So we'll go ahead and select that by clicking into the little box on the left. Okay, so we have our commodity selected, but do we want to know how many fishing rods we exported in terms of quantity, or do we want to look at dollar value or something else? To select that measure, we would go all the way to the left-hand side, click on Measures, and take a look at what's available, what type of data is available for this specific commodity. We have value in US dollars. We have quantity, 1 and 2. Those are typically the same. we have unit value and card count. To keep the demo and the example simple, I'm going to go ahead and select the value and quantity one. All right, so now we have our measures selected. Some of the other criteria that we can filter our search on is country. If we click on country, we can search for the world total. So how many fishing rods and the dollar value of fishing rods that we exported to the entire world. Or we can select a specific country. We can expand the world into different countries and make our selections. You can select random countries, whatever you'd like, or you can type in here the country that you're interested in. So for example, we typed in Mexico, and you typically, once you type in a country, it will give you a whole list of that same country. You can select any of these and the result will be the same. Again, to keep the example simple, I'm not going to select any country. We'll be looking at the world total. But then once we move on to districts, under this tab, you can select to see which U.S. districts exported fishing rods to the rest of the world. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select all of the districts. I mean, you can select them one by one, or you can kind of cherry pick which districts you're interested in. But I'm going to go ahead and select all of them by clicking on this green arrow. All right, so we have selected all of the districts. And then the last thing that we have left to select in this example would be time. Once you click on the time, it shows you for which months and years you have data available for. So we have data available 2021 through September, going all the way back to 1992. And then starting in 2002, if you click on the little plus sign, we have monthly data that's available. To select the year, you would simply click right here. To select all of the months in that particular year, you would select the green check mark. And this is a principle that applies across all of the report dimensions and in UTO in general. If you would like to deselect it, you would simply click the red X. Today we'll be looking at annual 2020 data. So I would place a check mark next to 2020. So with this example, we're looking at 2020 exports of fishing rods to the entire world from each U.S. district. So we selected all of those parameters, and we're ready to run our report. Our report button in USA Trade Online is hidden, so pay close attention. In order to run your report and get the table of data that you'd like, you need to click on this report button right here. It's a bit hidden. It's not that easy to see, but here it is. You would click on that, and your data would be displayed here. Currently, this format of having districts running as horizontally is not very readable or user-friendly. Ideally, we would have districts, because there's so many of them in rows, like displayed in rows, going vertically. The good thing is in USA Trade Online, you can rearrange the table to fit what you would like to see. We would rearrange the table by going next to this grid-looking thing and clicking on this table, which is table options. We'll click on that and click on rearrange report. All right, so it says rows, and it states that our measures are in rows. Our measures are dollar value and quantity. We would move that over to columns to be our column headers. And then we wanted districts to run vertically and be our rows, so we would move to row. First, you click on district, as I did, and click the move to row button. Once we have our columns all set here and our rows, we can click OK down here. And here we have a table of U.S. exports of fishing rods. Another really neat feature in USA Trade Online is that once you have your data table displayed, you can click on you can click on the descending button or ascending to see where we get most of the product from or the least. So I'm going to click on descending to see which U.S. district exports the most fishing rods, and it looks like it's Laredo, Texas. Then we have New Orleans, Chicago, Seattle, and Cleveland are in the top 5 in terms of the value in U.S. dollars. We can do the same for quantity. Let's see if the results are the same. They're actually not. So we have LA coming in second. So this would be your data table. To download this, if you want to create graphs with this, if you want to run analysis, etc., you would want to download it, of course, especially if you're pulling large quantities of data that you want to run analysis for. And to download it, you would click on this green downward arrow to download report data. The download format should always be comma delimited format. And the data format here should always be multidimensional. Once we have selected those two, we would click OK. And you can save the file wherever you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and just open it, but you can save it. And it opens in Excel. And this is the data that we pulled from ECO. And that's pretty simple. All right, so that was a very quick demo of USA Trade Online. I wanted to keep it short and simple because these types of searches are the most common. We also have, like I stated, tutorials for USA Trade Online, and we have a user guide in case you want to do something more complex. And then, of course, if you ever need assistance with this, Andrew and I and my teammates from my branch are always available to help. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Andrew, and he'll show you around the Global Market Finder.
So the Global Market Finder is an interactive data visualization tool that's free and open to the public, and it provides annual and the most recent quarters, most often denoted in year-to-date, U.S. export data at the commodity or the country level or both, which examines the trading partner, unit price, and the method of the transportation. Updated quarterly, and its intended audience is manufacturers and other businesses who are wishing to expand their businesses globally to identify potential markets overseas. So it's kind of a smaller version of UTO that's simplified, but the intent is to know what goods are being sold for at what prices in export markets. So the main the data is presented on two main criteria, and that is the commodity code and the country. So with those two combinations, you can examine the merchandise trade and a map of it. And then you can also look at a time series detailing changes to a commodity in a particular place and the method of transportation of a commodity to a destination country. And you can also look at the unit price of a particular commodity in a certain country that we are exporting to. So this is what the website looks like. And the website URL is this here. I will now give you a demonstration. So this is the website again. Okay. And like the Schedule B search engine, you can also find your commodity here. And it will give you to the search engine. It's actually nested within. You describe the product. And for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to put fishing rods back in. And then I'll give you your commodity here. And now that we know a commodity from this Schedule B search engine, we can actually use the drop-down menu to choose a commodity. It has all the commodities listed in this format, so you have to scroll down, and you have to be patient, to be honest. But you scroll down to your commodity, and 9507, then click on that. And now we have a map of the top 5 countries that we have exported fishing rod to from 2021 year to date. You can also choose other years. So if you want to know 2020, It will change here. If you want to know what that is in 2019, you can see the big red dot change, and those are your top five countries where we have exported fishing rods to. I'm going to go back up to 2021 year to date, and this is a map, and you hover over, and you can see there's 5,305 fishing rods that went to Japan, France, and there's other markets as well: Cayman Island, Mexico, Brazil, what have you. So you have a map here, but we also present the data in the form of a time series. And it's basically the export of fishing rods, right? And this is all, right? So if you wanted to go back and look at a particular country, we have the commodity code chosen. But let's give UK, United Kingdom, and because that's one country, right? And it's still red because it's still the top five. And you're presented with a time series graph of the export of fishing rods to the United Kingdom. You can also view it in a table format, presented in the table format. And this is a map time series. The other two are methods of transportation and unit price. Now, because we've chosen the United Kingdom, it's going to show, go back to graph, it's going to show only to the United Kingdom. So almost all of it in 2016 was transported to the United Kingdom via air. And then you go through the years, you have more containerized vessels. Containerized vessels generally meaning shipping containers. And you can also look at the data in a table format as well. Now, it's not limited to one country. You can look at every country, and you look at the graph again, and it's the display of how shipping rods were transported to other countries. Air, vessel, usually ships, and then other. Other here could mean anything from train to other methods of transport. And the unit price is this scale here, and I guess the line of best fit. And you want to export, obviously, with the highest unit price, and that will make you the most money, depending on. So if you're looking to export fishing rods specifically, the United Kingdom would be a good place to do it. Netherlands would be a good place to do it. These are all fishing rod markets with the highest unit price from American goods. With that said, I'm going to talk about the Census Trade API now. So a little backgrounder, API stands for Application Programmer Interface. And while the Census, USA Trade Online, and the Global Market Finder, it's more of an interface for people to interact with on a computer. But if you're kind of automating workflow and data processes, it's not the best interface to use it. And that's why application programmer interfaces came about. So the rise of big data and data collection and data aggregation spurred the advent of API, and Census felt like it needed to get on that board as well. So there are pre-built structures and tools for developers, and it makes it easier for programmers to build software. And tons of operating systems and platforms have different ways that API is incorporated. iOS, Windows, Twitter, Linux, they all have API at this point. So it's not limited to software developers. Like, anybody can use it. Businesses use it, government agencies use it, universities use it, and it's a way to collect relatively large amounts of data in an automated sort of way. And instead of having to go through, download data sets manually and individually from a USA Trade Online and Global Market Finder, this is more straight to the point and in a very, very low-level format for a usually software program to read it. It lowers burden on the developer to configure and host international trade data, and it's direct dynamic access, and it allows more people to use the data because you're not using as much bandwidth to load the interface. So our API has monthly trade data all the way back from 2013, and it includes different classification systems such as the harmonized system, the NACE, and then other systems we also have as well as end-use, SITC, Advanced Technology Products, and USDA classification. And like USA Trade Online platform, there's a district for and state geography as well. How does it work? Well, you use the API to make a call for specific data from the database. And the return data can go directly into the program or a subroutine, and the output's in JSON format. So usually what people like to do is they like to have a script or a bit of code, and they run it, and they access the URL, and from that URL, they read it, usually from things like Beautiful Soup or other kinds of web scraping, and then they upload that into any sort of data frame that they want to make. So this is how you construct a call. So this is the, what's the word for that? Uniform, yeah, the URI. And then this is the base. This is what's going to start off with. And then you have the get statement. And the get statement is the start of what parameters that you want to obtain. So in this case, it would be the state, all monthly variables, and the year. Our API has 58 export parameters and 107 import parameters. And there's various data and metadata such as monthly, year-to-date values, method of transportation values, classification system, date, district, and so forth. And on our website, we have a detail of all the endpoint and configurations on how to access this data. So I have here an example, and I figured I'd highlight these as we are modifying country, the commodity, and the time. So the country codes are a specific system, and the CTY codes can be found on this website. And I chose to go with the United Kingdom because they bought a lot of fishing rods at a high price from us. So I put United Kingdom country code in there, and I have the HS number. And like the United States, USA Trade Online, you can't put the dots in there. So no dot there, no dot there. It's all 10 digits. And then the time is denoted in such a way as well. So a website for the API looks like this. So have this as well. So this is the URI, right? And then the get statement, and then all the parameters. Right now I have it set to United Kingdom, code. I have to go by that. And then the commodity. This is the HS code for fishing rod. And then it's the value of trade for everything, and the air value. This is all by how much of this was in the air, how much this was in the vessel, the quantity, and time. And it's kind of a repeat. So the way you manipulate the code is you go to the URL and say you want to look at, you have 2021, let's say you want to look at January, and it would call January, and apparently not very many fishing rods sold in January. That kind of makes sense because it's cold. And then you can even do 2021, and I'll give you every month of the year. So that's the header. That'd be January, February, March, April, May, all the way to September. We could use an example where we do a different country. So I guess I won't let me do it while I'm presenting. So what was another one? Australia, right? Australia is 6201, 6021. Then you change this to 62001. That was right. And it didn't work. 6021. And then now you have Australia. And then the value of fishing rod will transport it by air there, and so forth. And then you can even just do different years as well. That's 2021. You can do because it goes back to 2013, we can do 2015-01. And then with this, view source. Yeah, and then here you have the source, and you would look at, it's in JSON notation, so you would look at how to, yeah. Okay. With that, question?
Okay, great. Thank you both for those presentations. Do we have any questions for the team, for Andrew or Tia, that has been received?
Yeah, we just got one in the Q&A. I'll let one of the Schedule B people pick that up.
It says sometimes importers file a post-summary correction to entries due to errors discovered after the import. So for the USA import trade data, what data is used in time frame before publishing? Are older months or years updated with customs data after liquidation of entries? Tia, I'll go ahead and answer that for you. I'm from the micro branch, and so as far as the corrections are concerned, we do receive them. We receive them on a continuous basis. The actual published data, though, will come out, I believe it's in June, from the micro branch. We do post corrections if somebody inquires about them, but in general, you will see the updated data all be presented in June, where we post annual revisions. So the current month will be as reported, and then in annual revisions will be posted in the month of June. That is all for that question. There's another question now. I think I'm going to pass that over to Jason to read.
Yeah, no problem at all. If Andrew could you show where the API documentation is? The easiest way to find it, I know, is to just do an open search for API census developers. If you just use those three, you'll end up getting to the API developer site, but Andrew can show you what that page looks like if you have it.
I am looking for that right now.
To our specific API page into the Q&A box. That should be available. Yeah. Okay, so we also did receive a question about geographies and the levels of geography that we have. That is pretty standard to all of our trade products. The smallest level of detail that we have for all of our trade statistics is at the customs district level, which are administrative regions. They don't really correspond to state boundaries or anything. It's just a collection of customs ports. The next level up that we have is state, and then above that we have national level. We do publish some products with geography, but those tend to be more specialized, and because we are under some privacy restrictions, we can't, we're required to suppress more information at that level, so there's a lot less detail. We do also have port level data, which also is published at less than a 10-digit level of detail. Did you find it, Andrew?
Am I mute now or not? Okay. So I can't respond in the Q&A. So I'll put it in the chat.
It's all right. So I did put the link into the Q&A. It's all right. So I did put the link into the Q&A. One other question that we did receive was about semiconductors. There's a couple of different ways that you can access that information. One, it depends upon the amount of detail that you want. There's a number of different semiconductor categories, and I can hand it over to the Schedule B people to discuss that if there's anything that I'm missing. But for just a general interest in semiconductor imports, we do publish information about semiconductors as an end-use category, and that information is available through the Census API. It is one of the endpoints, and it is published monthly, so you can get a very detailed portrait of the changes in semiconductor imports and exports. Does anyone have anything to add? Yeah.
No, I think if you wanted to use the Schedule B search engine for semiconductors, you would find out that it would require some questions, some follow-up questions, so it's not as simple as look for semiconductor and it gives you a number. We want to know, is it a transistor? Is it other than that? Is it a photosensitive semiconductor device? So there are some specific details that you would need to know as you talk about assumed characteristics and things like that, and then you can tell us more about your product. So you would kind of search through that if you were looking for a specific Schedule B number for your semiconductor. That's all I have to add there.
All right. Are there any other questions? Wendy, you're on mute.
Thank you, Jason. I tell you, thank you. But just wanted to thank everybody. We still have questions that you can continue submitting that through the Q&A. I don't know if the team has any additional tips to share while we have a few minutes remaining regarding Schedule B, search engine, any special tips, or all these tools are free. So please utilize those tools. They will certainly assist in your business operations. So we just certainly like to thank Andrew Scanlon and Tia Muslik and those supporting the Q&A and sharing valuable information on the Census trade data tools. And many of you may have participated in our earlier webinar on Census data tools. So once again, please utilize these tools. They are free, a lot of valuable information to assist in expanding your business operation. Also want to invite you to visit the Census Academy for any upcoming outreach and training that we will be offering. And the information, we value your feedback. So we want to hear from you. Complete the evaluation as you exit the webinar. Your feedback is important to us. And once again, that evaluation link takes you to a safe and secure site. So we will check the Q&A to see if there are any additional questions from anyone. Jason, any other input come in?
We do have one question
okay.
from a person in the audience. Seems simple except for the code in the API. And I can't agree more. My first experience with the API was that it was pretty intimidating to code with. That's the reason that we have the extensive documentation on our API page. I strongly recommend going through the user guide, and it gives all sorts of examples of good URL calls to the API, also examples of bad codes, what's allowed and what's not allowed. Really the trickiest part is determining what variables that you want to include and how best to limit them. And once you have that, it's actually fairly easy to use. And the reason for the weird URL calls is because the API, as originally designed, was for automated calls, machine calls to the database, and so it's not super human friendly necessarily, but it is a very convenient way to get large amounts of data. That said, and I don't believe it was really mentioned, our two main data sources, the USA Trade Online and the API, both have download limits. So the UTO will tell you when you're pulling too much information. It's like, this is just too big. And so, please cut down your call. The API basically does what you saw when Andrew put in a bad country code. It just returns you to your previous call or returns a blank page. It just never really tells you that it's unable to return that. The API does allow much larger downloads than USA Trade Online, but you won't be able to download an entire year's worth of data in one go. So I hope that was helpful.
Okay, great. Was that the last question?
That is the last one that I'm seeing.
Okay, great. Well, certainly want to once again thank our presenters and thank all of you. If you have additional questions following today, please call our international helpline at 800-549-0595 and select the appropriate option. Thank you and happy holidays. Happy